Well, welcome to CPSC 6127. Who knows the name of the course? What's the name of the course?
Contemporary Issues Database
Management. Okay, so that's the long official name. The working title is Business Intelligence. Okay, so we're going to be talking about business intelligence throughout the full semester. Let me introduce myself in case we haven't ever met, which I think is two of you. So I'm Dr. Hiram Carroll. I got my bachelor's in computer engineering and my master's and PhD at Brigham Young University out west. So I don't have a southern accent, although maybe you wouldn't have known that anyway. So it's my second semester here at Columbus State University. Okay, it's so far the best year going on. Anybody new this semester? This is your first semester?
Yeah.
Welcome, great. Who's been here, who's in their second semester? Okay, third? Final. That's the more important designation. Not how long have you been here, but how long till you're gone. I mean, completed, graduated. Great. 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 Okay. So why are you taking this course? Honesty is the best policy. It was the only thing that fit this time slot. I've always wanted to know how to work with databases. I closed my eyes and clicked and then opened them. Like what? How'd you get here? Welcome. Lokesh?
Yes.
Am I saying that right? Lokesh. Okay. Welcome. Anybody? Lokesh, the question was, why are you taking this class? How did you get here? It's not required, right?
It's required.
It is required. Okay, well, is that the answer? It's required. End of story. I didn't look past that.
First thing is for the software development track, it's a mandatory course.
Okay.
And second thing is, it's a very important course to become a developer or anything in the software field. Database is very important.
Yes, databases are very important. Great. What is your previous experience with databases? Who's had an undergraduate class in database?
We do have basics of database SQL.
Okay. But did you take that here?
No.
Okay, you took it at another institution? Okay. So has everybody had a database class? Okay, so two or three, four, half of you have not had a database class? Okay. All right. So this would be good to help each other in terms of like, okay, how do I create a table? Or how do I'm trying to run this query. I'm getting nothing, or I'm getting an error. To rely on each other to help each other out. If you're repeating the course, come talk to me. Let's talk about what worked, what didn't work, so you can be successful. On the screen is the class calendar, or the now it's showing it live on the web. Are there any questions about the calendars? If you've taken me before, this should look very familiar how I run a calendar. It's got the month, the days. It's got the before class, what we're doing in class, and then if there's something due. By due, that generally means 10 p.m. I'm going to shift from previous semester instead of midnight, but 10 p.m., partly because Cougar View goes down every other Friday at 10 p.m., and I didn't want to forget and schedule something Friday at midnight and then forget to remind you, and then it'd be a problem. Okay? There's links on here. I sent out an email this morning with a link to this. If you didn't get that email, we need to talk. Probably in person might work better, just in case it's an email problem. And since you didn't get one from me, to be able to figure out what's going on. And then, for example, so for section 1, it's a 50-50 course, 50% face-to-face, 50% online. So the way I'm going to approach that is we're having a face-to-face right now, and then generally on Thursdays I'm going to be posting things and having things due. For example, this Thursday have read chapter 2, and then I've already posted 2 videos on YouTube, so that means you should be able to get them on just about anything except maybe your watch. I don't know, can you get it on your watch? Can you get YouTube on your watch? Have you tried it? No? Okay, you look like you have a computer watch. Okay, so it's kind of a small screen, but I guess you could at least stream it and listen to it. I've tried to put the times there so you know. Generally the videos will be short, and then Thursday by 10 o'clock there is a quiz that's tell me your name type of a thing, and also covers the reading material that has been assigned. And just FYI, the deadline for a full refund this class won't be on your transcript is Friday. Okay, I assume that's midnight, but I'm not sure exactly the time, but the date is for Friday. This calendar will get updated. This is your new homepage on your browser. Okay. Any questions about the calendar? Okay. If you do have questions, ask up here. Send me an email. Okay. I want to just hit some highlights on the syllabus. Okay. Right up at top is my office hours. I also have this graphic. If it's also on my door. Let's see what I wanted to point out. So do read this. It's good material for like a quiz or something. A performance evaluation, grading is probably what you'd expect. Lecture. Who would like, has anybody already read the syllabus for this class? You found it? Okay. So one thing I want to point out is the cell phone policy for the face-to-face section. Okay. So if a cell phone makes a loud noise, like serious vibration on the table or something, or it rings, I have this policy so it won't interrupt class, which is actually kind of counterintuitive, because if cell phone goes off, class is totally disturbed, we all rejoice. We remind you that the next week bring in cookies, brownies, or fruit for everybody, and then we'll go back to class, okay? And what you bring in will be judged and scored on a scale from -10 to 0 based on like chewiness, softness, taste, ripeness, depending on what is appropriate, and then points will be assigned. Okay? So just turn off your phone. I have an Android-based phone, Motorola, which means Google bought Motorola, so they have tied that into Google Calendars. So I have a Google Calendar, which I have named Do Not Disturb, and I just have a repeating event on Tuesdays, 9:30 a.m. to 10:45. Don't turn anything on. I actually left it in my office today to be safe, but iPhone has something similar. So there's probably something systematically you could set up to avoid owing cookies. I have paid up for cookies about 2 or 3 times due to I was off by 5 minutes once on that calendar, and before I set up that calendar. And anyway, so if mine goes off, I pay up. If yours go off, we all just rejoice. Okay. Again, read all of this, but I'm hitting the highlights. Come to class. Good job. You're at 100%. That's what I expect from graduate students. If you're going to miss class, let me know ahead of time and get with a peer on what you've missed. Feel free to take notes in class. I take notes in church. I rarely have gone back and read them, although you should for class. There's rarely a test over what's given out in church, but what it does is it helps me engage, and it helps me process it, and I see it. and that all helps me to remember it and digest it. And so even if you threw them away, but don't, take notes digitally or on, there's this thing called paper I've heard. You could take notes that way. And then review them. If you spent 2 minutes reviewing an hour and 15 minutes, your retention of the material would go way up. So you've already dedicated an hour and 15 minutes to come. So dedicate 2 minutes to review what we did, and it'd be like coming to class twice, approximately. Start working on projects as soon as possible, so that in computer science, you can't ever say, I'm half done. I mean, like a sculpture, you could say, oh yes, you know, I'm halfway done with this sculpture. Or even an essay, you could say, I feel like I'm about half done with this, 10-page essay. I'm on about page 6. But with a computer science project, you can't ever say I'm half done, because usually the requirements are intermingled and they're not independent, and so you can't just say check, 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 check. So that's a reason to start early. Ask questions before class, during class, after class. And then the other suggestion is find a study buddy to work together with, but do your own. That worked really well for me, and several years later, we're still going strong, okay? So there's that. That's the family from July. Let me just take a moment to talk about administrative policies. Okay. I didn't know this last semester. I'll play the new guy card, but we have these commitment to meet the graduate program's academic dishonesty policy that all graduate students get to fill out. And so let me hand these out. You need to, in Dr. Khan, Shamim Khan is the director for the graduate program in our school, and he needs a copy of this with your signature. You can't sign it yet because number 2 says you need to take a quiz. Commitment 2 is take a training and a quiz. And so that says you took the training and the quiz, so you can't sign it yet unless you're not a new student and you've already, hold on, let's see. Students who have already completed and signed this commitment form in an earlier semester are not required to do so. Okay, so if you've already turned one of these in, you don't have to. But if you haven't, Dr. Khan needs a copy of it, and there is a training there in commitment number 2 to fill out. A note on that is, and this is the same spiel that my old students have heard before. A professor told me once that illustrated, if you have your hands under your legs and your eyes closed, you're probably, now you're smart so you can find ways, but you're probably not committing academic misconduct. So what can you do, or what can you not do if your hands are under your legs and your eyes are closed? What can you not do? You can't see other people's code, their project. You can't be typing while you're seeing their code. You can't be copying files. You can't be sending files. You can't be doing any of that. So that's what you can't do. Well, what can you do if your hands are under your legs and your eyes are closed?
Think.
You can think, okay? That's a great way to get out of a problem when you're stuck. What else can you do? You can listen. You can talk. I don't know what you can, what hit all the senses. You can smell, but I don't know what you're going to do with that. So you can say, hey, my database isn't working, and you could talk with somebody else and say, well, what's not working about it? I can't even log in. Oh, well, did you see these instructions? Oh, I forgot. No. So you could talk. Or you could say, I'm running a query, but I'm only getting half of them. Well, what do you mean by half? You could talk about it and to understand what the problem is. And so if you keep things at a high level, talking about it, listening, thinking through it, you're not going to commit academic misconduct. Okay? But if you're copying files or taking code from online and not attributing it, when you turn something in, it's your representative say, this is my work, I deserve a grade for it. If it's not your work, then that's a problem, and then you shouldn't receive a grade for that. If that differs, then the culture back home in another country, or I don't know, some small remote town in Georgia, then we go by the university's policies. So it very well could differ from a culture that you grew up with, but we're going to stick by the university policies and the class policies for this class. Okay, it's my least favorite part of the job. It's probably students' least favorite part of my class when the very few times it comes up. Okay, if there's anything that prevents you from being successful in this class, lack of food, housing, study habits, or you know somebody that fits that situation, let's talk. There's resources or there's things we can brainstorm on ways to address that. Okay? Any questions? Okay. Okay, let's jump in. Okay, today is January 23rd, and that's really small. All right, so we're going to be talking about business intelligence, and so I wanted to start off with talking about SMART goals. Okay? Oh, shoot. Who's ever heard of SMART goals before? Anybody? Oh, good. You're going to learn something. Okay. All right. So SMART is an acronym. Well, you know what? I type a lot cleaner than I write. So SMART, not surprisingly, stands for SMART. Okay. And so it's a way to guide good goal setting. And so each of these 5 letters talks about a characteristic of a good goal. Okay? And this can apply to academics, professionally, personally, whatever the case may be. So S is for specific. Okay? The goal should be specific. What does that mean? You should be able to write it down. If you can't write it down, it's not specific. And it helps you to really define exactly what the goal is. So the dictionary defines specific as clearly defined or identified. Okay, so clearly defined or identified, or precise and clear in making statements or issuing instructions. Okay, that's very important for a goal. Because if you just say, I want to be better, that's really vague. That's good, but it's vague. And if it's vague, it's hard to know that to work on. It may be you want to be a better husband, in using a personal example. So that's good, but that's not very specific. A better one would be something like, say I love you at least once a day. That might be something proven. I'm doing well in that, in case you're worried about. Or be a better dad. That's a good goal if you have kids. But a more specific one would be spend at least 5 minutes each day one-on-one, look them in the eyes with each child. You might have a goal, do well in 6127. Okay? It's not a bad goal, but we want to be specific. So what would be a good specific goal then? Participate more in class comes to mind. So it may be read and mark the assigned chapter before class. Okay, that's a specific goal. You can say I did it or not. And so doing well in 6127 is a good goal. Defining it in terms of a letter grade or an action, very specific, is better. Another example? Anybody want to venture out? What would be a good specific, an example of a specific goal? I'm just going to edit out the silence on the video. Okay. Maybe I'll just ask a quiz and then you can share your thoughts with it there. So so we have specific. M is for measurable. Okay? So measurable, something you can write down and know whether you accomplished it or not. Okay? So examples would be a GPA of 4.0 this semester. You can say yes or no to being accomplished. Complete all assignments at least 24 hours before they're due. That is something you can say, yes, I was able to do it, or I did it 95% of the time, or 10% of the time, whatever the case may be. So there's a quote I love. It's given by Thomas S. Monson. He passed away actually this year. And it's, when performance is measured, performance improves. When performance is measured and reported, the rate of improvement accelerates. So when we try to measure the performance, we're going to do better. Okay? And then reporting it helps as well. To have a peer, a mentor, or even a journal to record it are different ways to report it. A is appropriate. Okay? So with so much in life, make sure that your goals are focused on what's important. Okay? So is GPA 4.0 appropriate? It may be. It's like I can do it, and that's what I need for a job. Or maybe your life is so crazy, a 3.7 would be good. What would be an inappropriate goal? So that's something to think about, because if you can identify what's not an appropriate goal, then it'll help you understand better what is an appropriate goal, and to say, okay, well, where should I not be focusing? Where should I not give as much attention to? And therefore, that'll help you identify where you should give more attention. Okay, R is realistic. Okay, so is getting a 4.0 realistic? Each student is individual, maybe or maybe not. If you own a home, is paying off the home in 5 years realistic? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on the size, depends on your income, depends on the stability of your job. So then, again, the question is, what would be an unrealistic goal? I think that's maybe easier to come up with than an inappropriate goal. Part of what comes to mind with an unrealistic goal is if you have so many, if you added up the hours, that means you're going to be sleeping 4 hours a night. That might mean the culmination of the goals has become overwhelming and inappropriate and needs to be rethought. T is for time bound. Now this is very important for coming up with SMART goals, okay? So even if we've made it specific, we can measure it, it's good, and it's within reach. It's going to stretch us. We want to stretch, but it's within reach. If we don't put a time bound with it, then it's less likely to happen. Some people really need deadlines to function. I don't know of anybody that I guess unless you're overly stressed about it, but a time bound helps it happen. Time bound means before Friday, or in the first quarter, or by the end of the semester, or by the end of the year, as the case may be. Okay, so those are SMART goals, and with business intelligence, it goes right along. And I thought it'd be good just to start the semester out with a fresh view of some good time management and personal skills. Okay, and you can expect to be able to produce a SMART goal like on a quiz or something. Okay, so anybody have a company that they're already trying to work for? The 3 or 4 of you that are going to graduate, the answer is yes. At least it should be soon. Even if you don't end up for that company, something to shoot for. Anybody have a company that we can use an example that you or another student is, I really want to work for that company? Anybody? You can pick a local company in town if you want. If you want to stay in the area, if you already have roots. Okay, well, we need an example company to work on. Okay, so should we pick TSYS, Aflac, Google, Apple, Accenture? Okay, so let's see here. Accenture, I get that right?
Yeah.
So let's see what their mission statement is. Okay. Oh, why don't we go to their website? Is that gonna... Maybe. Okay, let's... What is the mission statement of Accenture? Oh, here we go. Team culture values. Okay, so every organization has its core values, which must be the mission for each of its employees. Accenture has the following: stewardship, best people, client value creation, one goal network, respect for individual integrity, according to Quora. And fast website access apparently isn't one of their mission statements, or maybe it's our network connection, but culture and values. So maybe this is their mission statement. I don't know, people are calling it different things. So so the question is, if that's their mission statement, does it fit into this SMART goal framework? How well does it fit? So SMART goals are specific. Is this mission statement specific? Something to work on? It's pretty vague, like, and most mission statements are, okay? And people would probably argue, well, maybe mission statement isn't the epitome of a goal, but I use that as a topic. So is it measurable? Now, I don't know that you could measure just about any of that. Okay, well, okay, one global network, okay, that's binary. We can measure that. But you measure respect for individual. Well, I'm sure you could come up with some tests, but maybe it's really loose. Is it appropriate? Yeah, that's probably where mission statements do very well, is it's appropriate. Realistic? Hopefully. Say what? It should be. So is it time bound? There's no mention of any time in here. You know, this year we are going to accomplish this, or by the end of the quarter, which would make me think they're talking to shareholders. Anyway, so just to put a perspective on it and to bring in the business world a little bit. So who in the company, so we're going to be talking a lot about effective decisions. So who in the company is responsible for making effective decisions? And we'll define that in just a little bit. Who would it be? Look. HR is important for responsible for making effective decisions. I would agree. They need to hire good talent. That's going to be the lifeblood and have a huge impact on the company. So is it just HR? The CEO? So let's just make that more broad. The executive team, the upper management, are they responsible for making effective decisions? Yes. If they're not making good decisions, that's going to cascade down, and you're going to wonder, should I be looking for a new company? Okay, so we talked about the gatekeepers and the top. What about the bottom? The developers, the day-to-day workers, do they need to be making effective decisions? They do. Everybody needs to be making effective decisions in a company for it to work well. So what do we mean by effective decisions then? So what we mean is a set of goals to work towards, okay, is what an effective decision is, and a way to measure whether a chosen course is moving toward, and this is from the textbook, is moving toward or away from those goals. Okay, so we need to be able to measure it. Okay, if we've made a decision, can we say, oh, yep, we're doing better towards it or not? We need information based on those measures provided to the decision maker in a timely manner. Okay, so they need to be informed decisions so that whoever is making that decision, HR, upper management, or an implementer, is making, and timely manner is important. Okay, so let's talk about timely manner. There was a ship that sailed like 100 years ago called the Titanic. Anybody familiar with this story? Okay, what happened to the Titanic? It sunk. Okay, that's what if you know something about the Titanic, you know it sunk, or that they made a movie out of it about the sinking. Who knew? So why did it sink? It hit an iceberg. I've heard some counter theories that it was actually there was a fire in the coal bin that they weren't able to put out. But most people would respond, it hit an iceberg. Okay, we're not going to go into. I guess you could put on some scuba gear and go investigate, but there won't be a quiz on that. Okay, so who knew that there was ice? So this is interesting. Okay, so it turns out that there was a ship called the America that had reported ice in those seas hours beforehand. Okay, and it was sent to the wireless operator. Now, the wireless operator on ship was overworked and did not get that information to a decision maker. And so the timely manner was, while the Titanic had information that there was ice in those waters, they didn't get it to the people in time. People on board knew that it was coming, but then once they hit it, if that was the case of failure, then it was too late. Okay? So, effective decision making requires specific, measurable goals. Okay? To be able to make effective decision, we have to have specific and measurable goals that will guide our effective decision making. Okay? We need useful information to the appropriate decision makers in a timely manner. to be able to make those effective decisions. If we don't have the information, we're just going on a gut feeling or otherwise, and it could be greatly improved by working with data. Okay? So the definition we're going to be, and so this all plays into business intelligence. Okay? This is also referred to as BI. So business intelligence is the delivery of accurate, useful information to the appropriate decision makers within the necessary time frame. Okay, so you can see there's lots of components here of what makes up BI. Necessary time frame to support effective decision making. Okay, so let's review this. So business intelligence is the delivery of accurate, useful information. Okay, so it needs to be accurate, it needs to be helpful. You can't just do a data dump. Okay, so it needs to be useful, and it needs to be given to the decision maker, and it's got to be in time to make the decision, so that effective decision making can happen. Questions on business intelligence? Okay, then the question is data BI? Can you say, oh, I got some specs, I've got some information, I've got some data. Is that considered business intelligence then?
It has to be organized.
It has to be organized. Okay, so my answer would be not necessarily. Just because it's data does not mean it's business intelligence. It needs to be organized. It needs to be digestible, is how I like to think of it. Okay, digestible to guide effective decisions. Okay, by digestible I mean understandable, being able to interpret it. And I don't know that others use that term, but if you think of food, if it's not in a digestible state, it doesn't matter. If it's a vitamin, it's like, oh great, I ingested it, but if it just goes right through, it does you no good. Or if you're looking at some sort of food, if it's not prepared or cooked, it doesn't do you nearly as good. Okay, that's what I have for today. Are there any questions? Okay, so what do you get to do before we see you again? So the before class stuff, it's day one, I get it. So, but now you've been warned. So read the syllabus, read over the chapter, and then before we meet again, chapter 2, there's 2 videos. I summarize that information. There's a quiz on CougarView. If you haven't used CougarView before, let me know if you have any questions. Okay, that's essential for being effective in this class, is using CougarView. And then read chapter 3 before coming to class, and we'll go from there. Okay? Great.